Hey everyone, it is Katie G with Elisa D with Let's Get Therapy. As you know, Elisa has an advanced degree in psychotherapy. She specializes in trauma, PTSD, and addiction. And today we are going to talk about grief. Whether you're grieving the loss of your job, your business, a relationship, or even a loved one.
I would like to assert that everyone is grieving something in this time. In fact, we have a really amazing article that we just found. Amazing, actually terrifying, not amazing, highlighting what we've talked about in the last week and then in our first episodes. But we want to spin this. We want to talk about how people are grieving, but we want to bring this article to the forefront to help us get there. So Katie, why don't you just kind of read some of the highlights of that?
Okay, this is a story about a 16-year-old from Maine. And it's a father in Maine who's telling this story because he wants to shed light on how the coronavirus pandemic is affecting the mental health of our young people. His 16-year-old son committed suicide on Friday. He said that his son Spencer had spent all summer working out and getting in shape so that he could play on the school's football team as a lineman. When the sport was changed to flag football because of the coronavirus pandemic, Spencer gave up on it because it wasn't the type of sport he wanted to play. Instead of working out, he began taking naps. Because of online learning, his grades were failing when he was usually a great student in school. On Friday, his son took his own life, leaving behind a note detailing the struggles with being isolated, away from his friends, and writing in quotes, he felt locked in this house. If that didn't put a pit in your stomach, I do not know what will.
I mean, I have chills. I mean, I'm only human. It brings tears to my eyes. It's not, the collateral damage is not okay. Our children are collateral damage to the lockdown.
Right.
So, you know, I don't want to go too far into that because we've gone there and everyone hears our stance on this. We're pro mental health and we're like, how do we break the stigma? How do we put mental health ahead of most needs? Because
right.
Now it's ending in life being taken. So that being said, this boy was grieving. He was grieving the loss of the life he knew, like so many of us are right now. We are grieving our loved ones who have passed away. This family is grieving their son. He was grieving the loss of his football career, potentially. We don't know. Maybe he was really good. Maybe he had plans for college, but he was grieving the loss of spending time with his peers. He was
the loss of his grades.
The loss of his grades. He was grieving his entire life. And obviously it became so heavy that he felt like he couldn't live anymore. There's also not a light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. And so there's not a lot of hope to hold on to. And so, you know, this is a good plug for therapy. If you are feeling like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, if you are stuck in this grief cycle, reach out to a therapist. We are doing telehealth. There's a couple people who, in states that aren't locked down, who are doing in person. Now California is back to a lockdown where we are. And so we're not doing in person, but reach out to somebody who can help instill some hope in you, who can help teach you what grieving is, who can give you some skills for your grieving. So if you are feeling that much loss of hope, if you are grieving that painfully, you're not alone, and reach out to somebody. And I know, Katie, you have your own situation right now where you're doing some grieving.
Yeah, like a lot of people, for those that don't know, I'm a professional broadcaster in San Francisco. I've been doing this for about 13 years. I've been at my current job for the last 10. And on Thursday, because of the coronavirus, I got laid off.
Yeah.
And it's a sock in the gut. It's a loss of my routine. It's a loss of kind of part of my identity, I feel, you know, and it's a loss of something that I absolutely loved in not only the radio station itself, but also what I did for a living. So there's a few things that I'm processing, and yeah, I'm sad as heck about it. I'm not going to hide it, but I also am taking some bizarre kind of morbid comfort in knowing that I'm not the only person this is happening to.
You are not the only person that this is happening to. And Katie, I mean, we've talked offline, but I'm so sorry that this is happening.
Yeah, thank you.
It's not fun. And like you just said, it's so many people right now.
Mhm.
And so I want to talk a little bit about the 5 stages of grief. So maybe you can tell us where you're at right now, because you're grieving all of the things that you just mentioned. You used to be able to wake up in the morning and you knew exactly what you were doing. And now
Right.
it's kind of like, okay, what am I doing? And
Like, what time should I shower today?
it doesn't actually matter.
Doesn't matter.
Your sense of purpose, like you said, your sense of identity has kind of just been, removed from you.
Yeah. And it you're right. It does feel that way. And I am trying to hold on to the fact that like, I'm still Katie Green. That's not gone. I'm just going to, be doing the Katie Green thing somewhere else someday.
Right.
But, it started with extreme sadness. I was a puddle on Thursday and into Friday. It was just, if you even brought up my job, I'd start to cry. I think I might have, I'm not mad. I don't know that I'm mad. I'm mad at the coronavirus for this. I'm mad at the circumstances that people are being put under.
Yeah.
Because of that. And companies, I know I've worked in the industry long enough to know how this whole thing works. So I know my company is not trying to, hi, Katie Green.
It's not personal.
No, it wasn't personal at all.
Right.
So I think I was kind of able to maybe glide past the mad stage because I'm not really mad at anybody. I can't direct it. I'm just mad. I'm mad at 2020 in general.
So you have a really important point. So the stages of grief, there's 5 of them: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So there was a school of thought that you kind of moved through the stages in that order, but to your point, you could have skipped a stage very much so, just depending on the circumstances. Or you might skip a stage and go back to a stage, or it's not actually as linear or cyclical as 5 stages would suggest. So
you're not supposed to go through necessarily those steps in that order. It can happen anyway.
And the thing about go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think probably to answer your question, I feel more in the acceptance stage, kind of like what's next, maybe looking towards the future more. But I know a lot of people that get stuck in that just anger or depression, and it sticks.
It does. And yeah, until you can work with somebody and do some healing, and not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a professional, but until you can process that and figure out, why is this stage so important to me? Why am I stuck in this stage? What's going on for me? Why is the anger part such a big deal to me? What am I actually angry about? And so really processing on a deeper level with somebody you can trust or a professional is super helpful. But yeah, you jump around the stages, and depending on the severity of the loss, you might just kind of glide through them very quickly and go, okay, I am in acceptance.
Right.
How long ago did this happen?
Thursday.
So it's been a week almost. Oh, it's been a week. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost a week. So no, it is a week. What day is it? See, that's what happens too. Or was it Thursday? It is Thursday. Whoa. Hey, everybody, welcome back.
That's the thing. Through this lockdown, you actually have been able to keep a sense of normalcy, whereas a lot of people experienced this grief a long time ago because they weren't able to keep a sense of normalcy.
Right. And that's a conversation I was having with my fiance yesterday. I had a moment, which is going to happen, but I had a little bit of a meltdown just because the realization of like, when everybody was talking about, oh, we're going to go into lockdown again, this is awful. I was like, okay, well, we can do this. I did it before.
Yeah.
And then I lost my job. And then I went, oh my gosh, okay, so here's the lockdown. So there goes my social somewhat of a life that I had. And then the work life just got pulled. And I went, I don't know how to do this.
So it's all gone.
And this is the first lockdown for me.
Right.
Because I had a job. So now, I think there are also a lot of people who are going through that might have had the privilege like I did to work through the first one And now here we are again, and maybe they're like, okay, I don't know how to do this like everybody else is somewhat, figured out, for a lack of a better term.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I mean, you're in good company. There's so many people, and anyone who's listening to this who's experiencing this, you're in good company.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge, is even as a mental health professional, I mean, it levels the playing field. Like we're all going through this.
Right.
I have additional skills and that help me. And so, again, that's my plug for therapy, is go seek help and get some skills to manage this sense of loss. It's, like we talked about a little bit before we got on the air, your identity is kind of wrapped up in this. And so that so many people, like this boy that we just talked about, his identity was wrapped up, and it's not a bad thing, in his grades, in his social life, in his football career, all
being a 16-year-old.
Yeah. 3 very positive things to fuel your identity. You have a 13-year-long career. That's not a bad thing to be feeding your identity. You were good. You are good at what you do. So of course, it's going to build up your self-esteem. It's going to be a part of who you are. And now you're having to go, okay, who am I without this job?
Right. And that's true. And there are so many people who heard you say that just now, and they're like, yeah, that's me. Because of how many people, things that they've been working their entire lives toward, whether it's broadcasting or your plumbing company, whatever it is.
Yes.
This is hitting everybody, and everyone, like you said at the beginning of this, is grieving somehow.
Yes, absolutely.
Whether it's as big as losing a family member, or as little as not being able to go to lunch with your friends every Friday like you used to.
That's right.
So, I mean, I think it's an important topic, and the tools are crucial.
And you could be even just grieving the loss of your routine.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who, like you, were able to keep a job for some period of time, and they've kind of kept some sense of normalcy, but they were doing the whole, okay, in the living room, I'm in my office, there's my work hat, and then I go to the kitchen, and that's my break room now, and it's also where I make my meals. And like, you just kind of go from room to room changing your hats. So there's a sense of normalcy, but your routine has majorly been disrupted. And so I think for those people who maybe have some control issues, some anxiety, you could certainly be going through grief of your routine, because your routine's kind of out the window.
And so for someone who's feeling that way, what are some tools maybe that they could use to, maybe create some feeling of normalcy, or a way to kind of temper that?
Yeah, that's it's an interesting question, because it kind of depends on your level of comfort and level of safety with the coronavirus.
Okay.
Because, some suggestions to help support some normalcy would be like, bring in some help. Like if you have kiddos and you're trying to do school with them as well as hold down a job, and it would be like, okay, bring in somebody who can support you in this, because you cannot do it all. Because that's a big thing I hear right now, is people just trying to do everything because they're in their house and their job is to do everything. And so it would depend on your level of comfort to bring in some help, to help support routine, get some structure going for your kids. I've had some people who are just melting down about the state of their house. Like it's a mess, because you're living in it constantly. You don't leave. So of course it's a gigantic mess. And so, recruiting your family members to help support, like keeping the house functioning, can feel really challenging, because not everyone has the same bent towards maybe a clean house. And so bringing in somebody to help clean the house would be an idea. But again, it depends on your level of comfort with seeing people, with your level of fear of the virus. And so there's just so many things at play to kind of like bring a sense of normalcy in. I think there's definitely skills for emotional regulation, because that's really what's going on here, right? People are dysregulated
Okay.
emotionally.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so, I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Two hands.
right, right. So emotional dysregulation can look like a lot of things. It can look like melting down with your significant other. It can look like screaming at everyone in your house because the house isn't clean and you haven't left the house in a week.
Yeah.
It can look like any type of dysregulation that you can imagine. So there are skills for that. One skill that I really love, and we've kind of talked about this, Katie, is figuring out where in your body you start to feel dysregulated.
Okay.
And so I know you said kind of you'll feel it like in your, maybe you said your chest, but everyone will feel it differently, and you'll feel different emotions differently.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you're starting to get angry, you might notice your face is getting really hot.
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting to feel sad, you might get that pit in your stomach. But your body will always tell you first what's going on. And people are so disconnected from their bodies.
I can actually 100% go with what you're saying, because you gave me this tip, I think when we first started this podcast, because when I started panic attack, I actually started to feel one come on and did that and realized, okay, my first sign is the palm of my hands.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. That I can feel it. And once I get there, I can start my calm down mode.
Exactly.
And that has helped me so much. Now I have to work on the getting mad one, because when I get mad, all hell breaks loose.
And that's a really great point too, Katie, because there's certain emotions that will escalate to very quickly. And so knowing that about yourself is really important, so that you start to pay closer attention to those anger triggers. Okay, what actually triggers me into this stage? Once you're able to figure out what triggers you in there, then you can go even further back and go, okay, that's my trigger. Now, what does my body do first, right? Like,
Okay, yeah.
so there's way to kind of puzzle piece it together. And really with those big emotions, it's such an impulsive reaction that it takes a little bit more work to kind of slow yourself down and do the regulation skills. But so going back to a regulation skill, if you can figure out where it is in your body, one very practical thing that I love is if you have an ice pack, or even just a bag of ice, if you start to notice that feeling in your body of overwhelm or anxiety or whatever it is, it doesn't even matter what it is, then you go get an ice pack and you put it on your face.
Okay.
And it will change it automatically changes the temperature in your body, which will automatically change how heightened the emotion is or how heightened the feeling is.
Okay.
It's so simple.
Yeah, it is. And we're all at home. We all got the ice bag somewhere.
Totally. Right. Another one on that same note is just getting a quick bowl of water and sticking your face in the bowl of water.
Okay.
You don't have ice, and or you could splash your face. It's not quite as effective, but whatever it is, something that will change the temperature in your body actually changes the emotional temperature in your body as well.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to try that next time I feel something coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a really great, fast, quick fix.
Okay.
Yes.
See, you learned something today.
Yeah. Right. We're all about skills here.
Mm-hmm.
That is a DBT skill for anyone who cares to know. That's dialectical behavioral therapy. You can look it up. It's a skills-based modality of therapy. I'm a huge fan because I think that's one of the biggest things that brings people into therapy is just a lack of skills.
Yeah. Well, that's why they go to others for help.
Absolutely. Yes. I don't know what to do with this big feeling. And granted, sometimes there's just underlying trauma that needs to get processed and things like that. But if you can create skills for the PTSD symptoms or whatever, you'll be able to function in the world a lot more cohesively.
Yeah. And it'll also help your world be a little smoother while you're stuck at home.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's a great thing. We can definitely go over some more skills in the
Mhm.
future. But this could even work if you're starting to feel yourself, because here's the thing about grief. Grief has a mind of its own.
Okay. Yeah, no kidding.
Grief is its own process. It's going to say, today, I'm here.
I
I'm
don't care what plans you have. What's up?
right. You're going to be sad today and you're going to cry in your bed all day long. And that's just part of the grief process. And you kind of just have to roll with it and know that, okay, I'm grieving right now and there's going to be hard days and that is okay. I'm in a process, and just
Yeah.
kind of letting that feeling wash over you, sitting in it and letting it pass, because all feelings do pass. No feeling is ever final.
I
Which is
love that.
why, and going back to suicide, which is why suicide is rarely the answer, because it will pass.
Right. It'll pass, but that in that moment, that feeling is,
It's overwhelming. Yes. So this is a skill you could use also, is changing that emotional temperature, going and just getting, it's also a distraction skill, right? You're going and getting an ice pack and that's taking away from those feelings, but just anything to kind of shift whatever's happening inside of your body is really helpful. So that is my announcement to all of our viewers, is we're probably all grieving something, and if you are, it's okay, and grief
Yeah.
has a mind of its own, and roll with it, and it's okay. Go seek professional help if you feel like it's too much.
Yes. There's
And
nothing wrong with professional help.
no, especially right now. Especially right now, we all need a little extra boost. We all need a little extra hope instilled in us. And if you need to go get that from a professional, go do it.
Absolutely. And if you're having one of those days, I am not a professional, you all know this, but if you're having one of those days and you're crying, just, eat the Oreo.
Eat the Oreo.
Eat the Oreo. And while you're eating that Oreo, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Let's Get Therapy. Like we've mentioned before, you guys can comment, you send us messages, we get back to you. We'd love to hear your suggestions for what you would like for us to talk about. If you're going through something and maybe have questions, let us know. We appreciate you guys coming and checking in with us each week.
Thanks for joining us.